Tonight, a community mourns. 3-year-old Hunter Straight-Smith has died after he was stabbed in his sleep last week.
Grassy is a beautiful place, but there's a cloud over our heads.
The river was destroyed by mercury poisoning half a century ago, and now another generation is reaching out for help.
We don't know if we paid the ransom. Would we get our password that we need to open up? If so, what's going to stop these folks from coming back and trying this again?
And they don't know who, but they know why. Extortionists encrypt an entire government computer network and demand money to open it back up. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. An emotional candlelight vigil was held in Winnipeg last night to remember a 3-year-old boy who died Saturday from a vicious knife attack last week. Hundreds gathered outside the home where Hunter Hayes Straight-Smith was stabbed while he slept. The 3-year-old suffered severe brain damage in the attack. His family says he died shortly after he was taken off life support on Saturday. Since then, a memorial has been growing on the lawn outside his home. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations wants Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to drop the appeal his government has filed against the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal's decision to compensate on-reserve kids. In September, the tribunal ordered the federal government to pay $40,000 to each child questionably placed in care via the on-reserve child welfare system since January 1st, 2006. But just days before the October 21st federal election, the Liberals filed an appeal against the tribunal's decision. FSIN chief Bobby Cameron says the ruling isn't just about the $40,000 per child. It's about compensating First Nation children who were victimized by the government's child welfare system, which failed to act despite numerous warnings from the tribunal.
Prime Minister Trudeau, if you're listening and if you get the message, drop the appeal. Let's do some serious justice for our First Nation people. It'll bring a whole scope of items for First Nation people, not just a healing aspect, but something that they can invest in the future. I know many families have said if we can ever get compensated, we would invest in the future of our children, our grandchildren, and those unborn.
Elizabeth May has stepped down as leader of the Green Party. She made the announcement in Ottawa today. APTN's Todd Lamrand was there, and he has May's reflections on her support of Indigenous people over the years and her vow to not go away quietly.
It was no surprise that Elizabeth May would not lead the Green Party into the next election. However, today's resignation before the House sits again was unexpected.
As of today, effective today, I am no longer leader of the Green Party of Canada.
May has replaced as interim leader by failed Halifax candidate Joanne Roberts. She says she's fulfilling a promise to her daughter.
So my daughter looked at this also as for my health. She said, Mom, you can work like harder than anybody's ever seen, but it's not good for you.
May is proud of her record in bringing Indigenous issues up in the House of Commons.
I'd actually raised Indigenous issues more than other party leaders. So I think and I co-sponsored Romeo Saganash's bill, and I met with Jody Wilson-Raybould when she was Minister of Justice to urge the Liberals to support that bill. So I think I accomplished as much as or a good deal more than one would have imagined, given our position as the only Green MP in the House without the right to speak. So
May says a Green priority in the upcoming minority government is to push for a new bill on the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights, and a quick response on the recommendations of the MMIWG inquiry.
And of course, we have to respond immediately and cancel the appeal of the Human Rights Tribunal decision that there is specifically money owed for what the Human Rights Tribunal found to be reckless and willful, quote unquote, reckless and willful violation of the human rights of Indigenous children in this country.
May emphasized she's not going anywhere. She will still be leader of the Green Caucus and will keep pressing the government on climate change.
Because there's a massive public movement in this country that occurred during our election campaign. We had 1 million Canadians marching on September 27th. One of them was the Prime Minister, protesting his own policies, I suppose. But one must not allow marching in a parade to pass as climate action.
May says she'll run again as an MP in the next election. The convention to replace her will happen next October. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A new advocacy campaign is putting the international spotlight on Grassy Narrows First Nation. The community has been dealing with the catastrophic effects of mercury poisoning for decades and has long accused the federal government of failing to provide help. As Brittany Hobson shows us, a youth-led writing initiative is calling on others to lend their voices.
Grassy is a beautiful place, but there's a cloud over our heads.
The people of Grassy Narrows have been dealing with a half-century of contaminated water after an old pulp mill dumped tons of mercury into nearby rivers. The effects are still felt today. A new international campaign is shining a global spotlight on Indigenous youth fighting for justice.
No more Mr. Denial and delay. That's what I say to Justin Trudeau.
Amnesty International is launching a letter-writing campaign ahead of the Global Human Rights Day in December. Grassy Narrows is one of the 10 cases included in their Right for Rights event. The organization is calling on youth worldwide to share their support. Anna Collins is with Amnesty International.
I hope that the government hears these youth and what they've been saying. I hope that government hears that there are millions of people around the world watching what they're doing when they violate the human rights of Indigenous children.
Steve Fobister, who goes by Darwin, has been living with mercury-related illnesses since birth. He started having seizures when he was 1. He also lives with a speech impairment.
It's a thing that I shouldn't be dealing with when I was like that young, and it's not normal. And I was having high fevers, which I'm having, to this day. It's still happening. I can't do things what a normal kid can do.
Fobister is the grandson of late Chief Steve Fobister Sr., who spent his life fighting for a mercury treatment center in Grassy Narrows. Yeah, Darwin continues that today.
He told me, not to stop fighting until we get our answers done.
In 2017, the Trudeau government committed to building the center, but that hasn't happened. Paris Mikas has this message for the federal government.
They're interfering with our future generations because we rather not have them come into this world knowing that where they come from is in jeopardy because of the mercury.
Right for Rights events will be taking place across Canada. For more information, visit rightathon.ca. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, it's time for us to take a quick break, but when we come back, a ransom attack that shut down an entire territorial government. And here's a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the east coast, we've got 7 and mostly sunny in St. John, 6 and sunny in Fredericton. Happy Valley, Goose Bay's snow and 2 degrees, -1 in Inukjuak and snow. Val-d'Or, 2 and snow. Montreal's 9 with some rain. Toronto, rain and 11 degrees tomorrow, 8 and rain in Ottawa. Kapuskasing, snow and 2 degrees, -2 and snow in Timmins. Puckatawagan's -9 with snow, mix of sun and cloud, and -9 in Thompson. -4 and snow in Brandon, mix of sun and cloud, and 3 degrees in Dauphin. 3 degrees in Saskatoon, 2 and snow in Swift Current and Regina. -3 and some snow in Stony Rapids, 0 and snow in La Ronge. Welcome back. If you're trying to reach the government of Nunavut today, don't send an email. All of their computer systems are shut down after a ransomware attack infected them over the weekend. And it could stay down for some time. Kent Driscoll has more of the story from Iqaluit.
The government of Nunavut's entire computer network was shut down on Saturday. It's still down. The reason? A ransomware attack. Ransomware infects a network when someone clicks on a link they shouldn't have. It then encrypts all of your information and offers you a chance to pay a ransom to get it back.
So the specific virus that we have, it's the Doppler-Paymer virus. They're still trying to determine the exact variant of that specific ransomware. So our outside organizations and our internal teams are working together to try to isolate that particular variant. It is a new one that they haven't seen up to this point. So trying to figure out exactly where it originated from and how we go about not only just stopping it within our environment now, but preventing any new infections.
So while the technical staff get to work solving the problem, each individual department has their own challenges. Nunavut schools are supposed to send report cards home this week. Those files aren't being held ransom, but the teachers can't reach the information without the government network. Patients are being asked to bring their health card and their medications when they go to the hospital. There might not be as much access to medical history without a network connection.
The Department of Health is being our #1 priority for sure, and getting the Meditech system up and running, not only here in Iqaluit, but in all the health centres across the territory. After that, Department of Finance is pretty high up on that list as well, so people can get their paychecks, or vendors and can get paid.
The timing could have been much worse. Payday for the territorial government's 6,000 employees was Friday. The attack hit Saturday. There is hope that access could be restored by this coming Friday, but the government's telling some partners that it could be 8 days until they get their network back. They have received a ransom note. That's a part of the virus. But they haven't asked for a dollar figure, and they're not going to pay.
We don't know if we paid the ransom. Would we get our passwords that we need to open up? If so, what's going to stop these folks from coming back and trying this again later?
The government of Nunavut says they have plans for this. Each department has its own steps to take in case of network failure. Over the next days, or even weeks, those plans are going to be tested. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
First Nations leaders gathered in Vancouver today to discuss what the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People means if it receives royal assent in British Columbia. APTN's Tina House explains.
Last week, history was made when the UN Declaration was tabled in the provincial legislature.
We are at an important moment in history. This new law is a critical step towards true and lasting reconciliation. If the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is passed, British Columbia will be the first province to bring these internationally recognized standards into provincial law.
Here at the Vancouver Convention Centre, Indigenous leaders, lawyers and government officials discussed what UNDRIP will mean if it is passed into law. From 2011 to 2016, Grand Chief Ed John served as the North American representative to the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples. Since then, he's worked tirelessly to see UNDRIP become a reality.
Sitting in the negotiation room in Geneva at the United Nations under the Human Rights Council and prior bodies, Human Rights Commission, never thought I'd see a day like this. Never thought that we'd see a government standing up and say, yes, we will adopt these international standards and apply them in British Columbia.
Roy Moran from the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation says there is a lot at stake for survivors of residential school and their families if Bill 41 is passed.
As we collected our statements as a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, all we heard was the systematic, concerted, long-term violation of these articles through the experiences and statements of residential school survivors.
UNDRIP has 46 articles that provide a clear framework for recognition of Indigenous rights and title, says Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond.
Has certain key concepts that are very important for provincial scope of authority, but then talks about having an action plan. And the provisions on the action plan were inspired, at least for the First Nations side, by international and UN bodies that have looked at substantive implementation of UNDRIP and the need to have meaningful processes.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs says the legislation is long overdue.
I think once we begin to develop the policy framework and different practices, more inclusive, I think that we'll all look back and say, wow, we should have done this 40 years ago.
The UNDRIP bill has passed its second reading with full support from both sides of the BC legislature. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
In 2015, a school in Cape Dorset, Nunavut burned to the ground as a result of arson. This year, a new school finally opened for Dorset's older students. Here's an encore story from our Kent Driscoll, who found out that a new building solves a lot of Nunavut's running education problems.
About the only thing that isn't new at the Peter Pitzelak School in Cape Dorset is that shiny sign outside. The rest of this $34 million school is brand new. After the original Peter Pitzelak School burned down in 2015 due to arson, students didn't have an open atrium like this one. They didn't have a music room like this. They spent a year in portable classrooms and another doing split shifts with the elementary school. According to their principal, the new building has brought back some old faces. Nunavut high schools face chronic poor attendance.
We're sitting at around 92% attendance, which is incredible. One of the problems for us is that this facility was built for a student population of 160, and currently we have an enrollment of 210. So we are bursting at the seams in that respect.
And the place looks great. The kids are fun and engaged in learning. This is Nunavut's newest school. What does the principal think worked here that can work elsewhere?
We have a modern home ec room and we have a modern shop, and those appeal to our students very much.
Monica Manning is a grade 11 student here at Peter Pitzelak. She was also a student in the old school and sees a change.
I see they show more respect now to the school and the teachers more than they did in the other school. They listen more, we could see smiles everywhere.
Monica is right about that. I saw smiles everywhere, not just here during class picture day.
New school, new beginning, and we're actually serious about school now.
According to StatsCan, throughout Canada, 85% of Canadians receive their high school diploma. Here in Nunavut, the number is as low as 35%. As recently as 2012, this very school had a 46% attendance rate. That has changed, and that means Nunavut education officials may have to consider what role a modern school can play in helping attendance, because it sure looks like it's working at this one. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Cape Dorset.
We've got to take another break, but there's still more news ahead, and here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. To northern Alberta, we've got -8 and snow in Fort Chip, -8 in Mixon Cloud and High Level. 0 and snow in Edmonton and Calgary, 8s for Medicine Hat and Lethbridge. 10 and rain in Kamloops, 9 and mostly cloudy in Quesnel. -8 in Mixon and Cloud and Fort Nelson, Sandspit 11 and Mixon and Cloud. -14 for Beaver Creek, mostly sunny skies, -24 in Old Crow. -11 for Norman Wells, Wati -10, lots of sunshine in the Northwest Territories. -8 and sunny for Tuck and Inuvik, -12 in Fort McPherson. -29 and snow in Cambridge Bay, -11 in Baker Lake. -21 in Resolute, clear skies, Tallyoak, -31 in snow, 13 and -13 and mostly sunny in Goyahaven. Welcome back. Interest in our cultural roots is increasing, from awareness of traditional methods of learning and healing to a resurgence in survival skills honed by our ancestors. In Timmins, a Cree man is giving the community an opportunity to learn some of those skills. CTV's Lydia Chubak reports.
Okay, start cutting from here. Okay.
Brian Hunter says making moose hides is a survival skill many Indigenous people lost when they were taken away to residential schools.
Look at an average native today. They wouldn't even know how to set up a trap, let alone make hides or go hunting. And with me, I was one of the very lucky people to live off the land and pick up all this traditional knowledge.
When Hunter grew up in Pewanik, he says men went hunting and women took care of the hides. It's not like that anymore.
And this teaching is supposed to be carried by women, but since most of the women don't really know how to do it, I'm teaching women to learn the skill of hide making so that they can pass it on to their kids.
That's why the Ontario Native Women's Association hosted this experience at Northern College.
There's been a lot of interest in land-based learning, land-based healing,
And these opportunities are coming up in Timmins in all kinds of ways, and this is one of them.
I'm also new to this as well, so for me it's relearning, I guess, the culture in itself.
Hunter says he knows only about 20 people within the Mushkegowuk territory, home to about 10,000 who have this skill.
So I made it my mission to bring this back.
He adds he'll teach anyone who wants to learn just to keep the skill alive.
Whoa! Yeah! That's impressive.
Brenda Bevan is non-Indigenous, but works as a community liaison coordinator for Timmins Police.
This, I think, brings to me just a better understanding of what has been taken away from them and how it needs to be brought back.
So you're going too fast.
Okay.
I grew up with moccasins and moose-hide mitts, but I've never known how they got it like that. And yeah, it's nice to see, and it's a lot of hard work. Wow, we really survived all those years.
Hunter says it takes 4 seasons to make a quality hide, and he says demand for them is high. They sell for about $2,000. Lydia Chubak, CTV News, Timmins.
The Forks in Winnipeg is a popular gathering place for locals and tourists alike. It attracts millions of visitors a year with walking trails, gift shops, and art. Well, now you can enjoy it while learning some of the history of the place that was a meeting spot long before settlers made it this far west. Jolene Banning brings us this story.
This is the Odena Celebration Circle. Odena comes from the Ojibwe word for heart, Ode, and therefore means the heart of the community.
The meeting grounds of Nestaweya, or the Forks, has been the home of Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. It still is, attracting Winnipeggers and tourists from the world over. It's a place for entertainment with natural and historical sites and beautiful art throughout. Nestaweya is undergoing a shift and reclaiming its original names. Now, there is a self-guided audio tour to download, narrated by Dr. Negan Sinclair, curator of the gathering space. The listener can experience the area in a more meaningful way.
What we start off by talking about is, while many people know this place is called the Forks, it's actually referred to by Indigenous peoples as called Nestaweya. So the Forks is a very kind of Western way of understanding this space where 2 rivers come together and then head off to Lake Winnipeg. But that's not the way Indigenous peoples thought of this site.
The tour takes about an hour to cover, with over 24 stops. Like the MMIWG monument where people lay their sema, tobacco, for loved ones. The Odena Celebration Circle and Nemama, a sculpture of a woman pregnant with baby. Long flowing hair. Mirrored medals to allow yourself to be seen within her.
Well, the hope is that we understand that Winnipeg is built literally on top of Indigenous civilizations, and those civilizations are still here. They're still in operation. The intellectual histories of those peoples are still here, still vibrant, still contributing, and so that's part of renaming things or bringing back the names from those things.
Maybe you're new to the city of Winnipeg like myself, or you've lived here all your life and just want a deeper understanding of the significance of the Forks. Download the 1-hour-long audio tour narrated by Negan Sinclair and enjoy all that's around the Forks. Jolene Banning, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
That is all the news I have for you today. You can always find more on our website, aptnnews.ca, and be sure to get the APTN News app on your phone. I'm Melissa Ridge, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.